Hello there, my sleepy fellows. Tonight, I invite you to take a gentle step back into a world where magic hums softly in the stone walls, where torches flicker with an ancient charm, and where secrets lie hidden beneath the quiet floorboards of a castle that never truly sleeps. The tale I'm about to share is calm and curious, wrapped in the hush of twilight and the faint rustle of enchanted parchment. It's a story that begins with something missing, not something stolen, not something lost, but something that simply wasn't where it should have been. And that something was the Marauders map. Now, if you've ever heard of the Marauders map, you know it's no ordinary bit of parchment. Created long ago by four mischievous students, Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs, it holds the uncanny ability to show every hallway, every staircase, every secret passage within Hogwarts' School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Most fascinating of all, it shows the names and movements of everyone within the castle, every soul, every step, every breath. But one night, long after most of the castle had gone to bed, the map did something it had never done before. It went quiet, not blank, but silent, like a whisper waiting to be heard. Our story unfolds in the quiet heart of Hogwarts, on a night painted with soft candlelight and gentle shadows. The great castle stood beneath a calm sky where stars blinked like drowsy watchers in the heavens. A light breeze drifted through open windows, bringing in the scent of night-blooming roses from the greenhouses and the earthy perfume of the forbidden forest far below. Within the ancient stone corridors, enchanted torches flickered low, casting golden halos on worn stone. In the Gryffindor common room, the fireplace crackled lazily, warming the toes of a sleeping tabby cat curled on a cushioned armchair. A few students had stayed up, whispering over chocolate frogs and old textbooks, but soon they too slipped away to their dormitories, leaving behind only the soft creaks of the building settling into its nightly rhythm. Somewhere above, in a tower where magical maps were not meant to falter, the Marauder's map was gently unrolled on a desk by a curious soul. And that's where our sleepy story truly begins. So, if you enjoy magical mysteries whispered in the dark, if candlelight comforts you and the quiet ticking of enchanted clocks soothes your thoughts, you may wish to stay a while. There's no hurry here, only gentle magic, slow wonder, and a question that waits for morning. And if you enjoy stories like this, slow, enchanting, and full of soft, magical secrets, feel free to like, share, or subscribe so you never miss another quiet adventure in the world of Hogwarts. It helps us continue these tales and gently guide others like you into restful, wonder-filled sleep. Now, breathe in and out. Let your thoughts drift gently through the candlelit halls of Hogwarts. Because the Marauder's map just stopped showing anything, and that's where the magic begins. It was a peaceful evening in the Gryffindor Tower, the kind where the fire seemed to hum lullabies, and the sky outside the tall windows darkened slowly, like ink spreading gently over parchment. Among the students tucked away in their cozy dormitories, one young wizard remained awake, sitting cross-legged on the red and gold rug just before the hearth, his eyes reflecting the gentle flicker of firelight. It was Harry Potter. But tonight, he wasn't saving the world or sneaking through corridors under his invisibility cloak. No, tonight, he was simply a boy with glasses slightly crooked and a curious mind that hadn't yet found rest. Beside him, lying on the rug with her chin resting on her hands, was Hermione Granger. A book lay unopened beside her, long forgotten, as she blinked slowly, watching the flames dance. Her mind, always busy, was beginning to soften with sleepiness, but something about the night kept her near the fire. On the couch above them, Ron Weasley sat slouched with one leg tucked under him, lazily tossing a chocolate frog box into the air and catching it with barely any focus. His red hair caught the light, and a sleepy smile lingered on his face as he listened to the quiet crackling wood and the occasional distant hoot of an owl beyond the window. They weren't speaking. They didn't need to. These three had grown used to quiet evenings like this, moments of peace between the wildness of their magical lives. Moments when the only thing that moved was the firelight, and the only thing that stirred was curiosity. "Do you ever wonder," Harry finally said in a low voice, breaking the hush but not disturbing the calm, "if the castle ever forgets things?" Hermione turned her head slightly. "Forgets? Like hallways, or doors, or people, like it gets sleepy too?" Ron snorted gently, but didn't disagree. "If it did, I wouldn't blame it. This place has more secrets than Filch has keys." The three of them chuckled softly, not loudly, just enough for the room to share in their warmth. Harry reached beside him and pulled out a folded piece of old parchment from his pocket, the Marauders' map. He'd checked it earlier and saw nothing, not even the dots that marked his own friends, just the still outlines of rooms and halls, like a drawing without movement, without breath. He tapped it with his wand and whispered, "I solemnly swear that I am up to no good." But again, nothing. No names, no footprints, just the castle, silent. It should have been worrying, but somehow it wasn't. Hermione sat up slowly. "Maybe it's tired," she said with a quiet grin. "Even maps need sleep." And so they stayed like that, three friends surrounded by warmth and magic, unaware that a soft, sleepy mystery had already begun to stir in the air around them. A mystery that would unfold not with thunder or danger, but with quiet steps and forgotten whispers. There was something different about the air that night. As the fire in the Gryffindor common room settled into soft embers, its golden light casting sleepy shadows along the curved stone walls, Harry leaned back against the couch. The Marauder's map still rested open on his lap, its old parchment glowing faintly in the low light. But where names should have danced across the floors of Hogwarts, small inky footprints trailing through hallways and behind hidden doors, there was nothing. Not even the familiar cluster of students in their dormitories. Not even their own dots sitting just by the fire. It wasn't broken. The map was intact, its enchanted pathways perfectly detailed, but it felt silent, as though it was holding its breath. "I've never seen it do this," Harry said quietly, his voice like a whisper drifting through candle smoke. Hermione scooted closer, the rug bunching under her knees as she leaned over his shoulder. She examined the map with narrowed eyes, not out of panic, but with a calm, thoughtful frown. It's not responding to the incantation either? Harry shook his head, tried twice. Ron finally sat up, brushing chocolate crumbs from his jumper. Maybe Fred and George pranked it. They always said the map had moods. Hermione gave him a look, though even her usual correction came with a yawn. The map doesn't have moods, Ron. It's enchanted with very complex tracking charms and personality-based spell layers. It shouldn't just stop. Still, there was no anxiety among them, only an unusual kind of curiosity, like discovering that the library had shifted its shelves again, or that the suits of armor had decided to hum in harmony. Strange, yes, but not frightening. I wonder, Hermione said after a pause, what would happen if we walked around with the map open? See if it follows us. Maybe something is interfering with the enchantment. Like what? Ron asked, tying his shoelaces lazily. Perhaps a magical storm in the castle, she mused. Or maybe the castle itself wants us to find something. That thought hung in the air for a moment. The idea that the castle, alive in its own strange, enchanted way, could guide them gently into secrets long forgotten wasn't new to them. Hogwarts was more than stone and spell. It breathed in its own quiet rhythm. Harry stood, folding the map and slipping it into his robe. Come on then, just a little walk. Ron groaned softly, but stood anyway. If a ghost jumps out, I'm blaming Hermione. The corridors outside were dim, lit only by the soft glow of enchanted torches. Their flames didn't flicker, but floated gently, like warm fireflies pinned in glass sconces. The castle was unusually still, not the eerie silence of danger, but more like a hush before a snowfall, a peace that made footsteps sound too loud, even when muffled by old carpets. They passed the library, its heavy wooden doors shut tight, the scent of ink and parchment wafting through the cracks. Something about that scent made them all pause. The Marauders' map still showed nothing, but it felt like something was watching, not in a threatening way, but like the castle itself was gently observing them, curious about what they might do next. As they turned a corner near the charms corridor, the candles on the wall flickered just once, and then, faintly, a sound. It was delicate, like the flutter of wings or the turning of a page. Harry stopped. Did you hear that? Ron blinked. Hear what? Hermione turned toward a nearby tapestry, a faded depiction of a wizard teaching goblins how to write. She tilted her head. That sound, it came from behind here. They all leaned in, nothing but silence now. But Harry reached forward and brushed the edge of the tapestry aside. Beneath it, to his surprise, was not a blank wall, but a door. Not a secret passage, not a hidden hallway, just a simple wooden door with an old brass handle and a soft shimmer over its surface, as though it had only just remembered it existed. This isn't supposed to be here, Harry whispered. The map doesn't show it, Hermione added, which means, Ron started, then trailed off. It's probably cursed. Hermione elbowed him gently, or it's something that the map simply can't track. Harry placed his hand on the doorknob. It was warm, Not hot, not cold, just comfortably warm, like a cup of tea held too long. With a quiet click, it opened, and what lay beyond wasn't darkness or dust, but a room bathed in golden light. They stepped in slowly, the wooden floor beneath their feet creaking softly. The air was filled with the scent of old books and candle wax, of polished wood and lavender, calming, nostalgic. It was a library, but not the one they knew. This one was smaller, more intimate. The shelves curved inward like the arms of a gentle hug, books nestled close together, their spines worn with age and stories. Candles floated above, casting soft glows that danced across the titles. A desk in the center of the room held an open book, its pages fluttering gently, even though there was no breeze. "It's beautiful," Hermione breathed. Ron ran a hand along a nearby shelf. "These books, they look ancient." Harry moved toward the desk, his footsteps silent now, as if even the floorboards respected the quiet. The book on the table stopped fluttering the moment he neared it. He peered down. The text was handwritten, with loops and flourishes like quill trails across time. The ink shimmered faintly, sometimes blue, sometimes gold, and then it turned a page, by itself, very slowly. Ron's eyes widened. That's not normal, right?" Hermione shook her head, but her voice was calm. "No, but look, it's not threatening, it's inviting." The next page of the book held something unusual. Not words, but moving images, not like the portraits that talked and strolled, but softer, like memories captured in watercolors. A student, sitting alone in this very room, reading by candlelight. Then another image, of the book turning its own pages for them. "This room remembers," Hermione whispered. "It's a place for quiet magic, not spells or curses, but the kind that helps you remember who you are." Harry looked down again. The book's images shifted to show him, sitting where he stood now, watching the same page. Then, gently, it turned another, and across that new page appeared something they hadn't expected, the Marauders' map, or rather, a drawing of it. But on this version, names appeared, slowly, like they were waking up. Not just their names, other names, names from long ago: Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, Prongs, and then a fifth name, one they didn't recognize. Uh-oh. Quiet chill brushed Harry's spine, but not fear, just the tingling of something deeply magical, long hidden. "What is this place?" he asked softly. Hermione smiled gently. "I think it's where the Marauders' map was born." They stood in silence, wrapped in the glow of the room, the soft flickering of floating candles, the gentle turning of the book's pages. The castle hadn't forgotten them. It had simply been waiting to remember. The air inside the secret library shimmered with quiet magic, as if the room itself were listening. Harry stood still, one hand resting gently on the old desk where the mysterious book had shown them moving images, a soft memory of those who had once sat here in this very space. The page had turned again, and this time the parchment was blank. No words, no illustrations, just an inviting stillness. "Did it stop?" Ron asked in a hushed voice. Hermione leaned in, her eyes narrowing slightly in that familiar way when she was thinking deeply. "No," she whispered, "I don't think it's stopped. I think it's waiting." "For what?" Ron tilted his head. "More tea? A biscuit?" Harry didn't laugh, though there was a small smile forming at the corner of his lips. "Maybe it wants us to write something." He reached into his robe and drew out a quill. It wasn't fancy, just a plain writing quill he used for notes in defense against the dark arts. He dipped it into the small inkwell that had been sitting quietly on the desk, as if it had been waiting all along. Then, very gently, he wrote, "Hello?" The ink soaked into the parchment instantly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, like a drop of rain stirring the surface of a still pond, the words vanished. In their place, new ones slowly emerged, written in the same looping hand the earlier entries had used. "You are not the first to find this room, Harry Potter." Hermione gasped softly. "It knows your name," Ron muttered. "Okay, now it's officially spooky." But there was no danger in the air, no shifting shadows or sudden chills, just a deep, warm sense of magic, older than any of them could measure. Harry steadied his breath and wrote again. "Who are you?" This time, the answer came quicker, the ink forming in elegant sweeps. "Once, I was a student here, long before your time. This book holds the thoughts I never shared, the questions I never asked aloud. The library gave me a space to speak freely, even if no one answered back, until now." Hermione's hand covered her mouth as her eyes sparkled with wonder. "It's a magical diary," she whispered. "But not like Tom Riddle's. This one doesn't steal or trap memories. It stores them to be shared." Harry nodded, his heart calm but curious. The pet felt close here, not like a ghost, but like a gentle companion, someone who had once needed a friend and left behind a book to become one. He wrote, "Why are you speaking to me now?" The parchment shimmered, "Because I sensed you needed something too. Not information, but peace. You are surrounded by voices every day, Harry. This is a place for silence that listens back." The words settled into the parchment like falling leaves. The candlelight above swayed gently, almost like the room was breathing with them. Ron sank onto a nearby armchair. "I mean, this is weird, but it's also nice." Hermione smiled as she sat beside him. "It's like someone left a piece of themselves behind, not to haunt, but to help." Harry returned to the quill. "Can I ask you anything?" "Yes, I will answer as best I can. This room holds memories and whispers of time, not all-knowing, but honest." Harry paused. His fingers tightened slightly on the quill. Then he wrote slowly, "Did you ever feel like you had to be something for everyone?" There was a silence before the ink responded, as though the book was thinking. "Often. I wore many masks. The clever one, the brave one, the one who never made mistakes. But here, I could admit I was just a student trying to understand myself." The next lines appeared immediately. "You don't have to carry everything. Let some of it rest here." Harry stared at the words. Then, without hesitation, he wrote, "Sometimes I'm afraid of the quiet, because in the quiet, your thoughts echo louder, but that's where healing begins. Let the quiet hold you instead of fearing it." There was a long stillness after that. Hermione broke it gently. Harry, I think this book is exactly what you needed. He nodded, and then, without any of them touching it, the book turned a page. This one wasn't blank. It was filled with drawings, soft sketches of Hogwarts, hallways and rooms they all knew, but the lines were warm and worn, as if drawn from memory, not reference. There were smiling portraits, floating candles, a spiral staircase that twisted into the stars, and in the center of the page, a little sketch of the same desk they now sat at. Look, Ron pointed. There's writing under it. Hermione leaned close. If you ever feel lost, come back to this room. The castle remembers, and so do I. The page glowed faintly, and for a moment they could swear they heard the soft scratch of a quill, like the memory of someone writing long ago. Then something else happened. The shelves around them began to shift. Not dramatically, just the barest creak and groan as wood adjusted. A new row of books emerged from behind one of the cases, previously hidden in shadow. Each spine shimmered differently, as if they were being remembered back into the world. Hermione was already on her feet. These weren't here before. Ron joined her, cautiously pulling a book down. They're not textbooks. Look, reflections from the quiet tower, letters never sent, what the portraits know. These are personal, Hermione murmured. They're memories, feelings, maybe even thoughts from other students who found this place. She turned to Harry, her voice soft but excited. This isn't just a room, it's a sanctuary for anyone who needed a voice but didn't know where to speak. Harry walked over and placed the quill back in its holder. Then maybe we should leave something behind too. He pulled a small piece of parchment from his pocket and wrote a few lines. To whoever finds this next, you're not alone. This room helped us remember that. Let it do the same for you. H.P. Hermione added her initials beside his. Ron, with a slight grin, did the same, though his handwriting was larger and slightly crooked. They tucked the note into a space between two books on the shelf. The moment it slid into place, the candles above glowed just a little brighter. The room was content, and so were they. As they prepared to leave, the book gently closed itself. The door creaked open, not with urgency, but with gentle permission. They stepped back into the hallway, where the torches had still flickered gently. The air was just as quiet, but it no longer felt strange. It felt calm. Behind them, the door vanished, but they knew it would return, not to be found by force, only to those who needed it. The soft rhythm of footsteps echoed through the castle's stone corridors as Harry, Hermione, and Ron walked back toward the familiar sections of the Hogwarts library. The warmth of the hidden chamber lingered behind them, but something quiet had changed, something within Harry especially. A peaceful sense of curiosity now pulsed beneath his ribs like a soft heartbeat. Yet even as they returned to the sunlit rows of ordinary shelves, the magic they had uncovered did not let go. It clung gently, like the memory of a lullaby half remembered. Hermione was the first to speak as they crossed into the back corner of the library. There's more to that room. I can feel it. That wasn't just a hidden study. There were layers, traces of enchantment, that weren't finished showing themselves. Ron raised an eyebrow. What, like more ghost journals floating about? Or a second secret library hidden inside the secret library? Harry, though, said nothing. Instead, he paused by a Behoop's carved wooden panel tucked behind a stack of rarely touched books on obscure magical theory. His hand brushed across its surface. The wood was warm. "I think," he murmured, "there's something else nearby." Hermione's eyes flicked to the small metal plate on the panel's top edge. A rune had been etched into the brass, faint but unmistakable. She drew in a breath. "This is old magic," she said, "and it's active." Ron groaned. "You mean it's cursed?" "No, it's protective." She reached into her satchel and pulled out a folded parchment. It was a chart of ancient defensive runes, a gift from Professor Flitwick she had been studying for weeks. "This one means safe memory. It's used in magical architecture to preserve places where deep emotion or personal truths were stored." Harry's fingers traced the rune, like a pensieve, but for places instead of thoughts. Hermione nodded slowly. "Exactly." Without a word, they began, pulling away the books stacked in front of the panel. Dust rose, thick and golden in the afternoon light. As the last book was lifted, the panel gave a gentle click and slowly opened, revealing a narrow stone staircase leading downward. It wasn't dark. A soft light pulsed below, like the heartbeat of the castle itself. They glanced at each other and stepped inside. The staircase spiraled gently, not steep or ominous, just hidden, like a secret someone once meant to share, but forgot how. The walls shimmered with spells barely awake. Along the way, small silver words appeared and faded on the stones as they passed. Not every truth must shout. Listen to what was left unsaid. The room remembers you, even if you forget it. At the base of the stairs, the space opened into what looked like a circular study. But there were no desks or bookshelves, only cushions, low stone benches, and a pool of still water in the center, glowing with soft, silvery light. Hermione gasped. "This is a whispering room. They're mentioned in old texts, spaces built into magical structures to preserve emotion, not knowledge. Hogwarts must have had several, but most were lost." Ron's brow furrowed. "Lost? Like they just wandered off?" "No," she whispered, "sealed by time or by grief." Harry stepped forward. The pool of water didn't ripple. Instead, it showed something. Not a reflection, not a memory, but a moment, one that was still unfolding. In the silvery surface, they saw a young girl sitting in the same room, writing in a diary. Her robes were Hogwarts issue, but old-fashioned, embroidered with small silver threads at the cuffs. Her eyes were kind, but sad. She didn't seem to notice them, watching. "She's—" Harry's voice softened. "She's still here." Hermione nodded. A magical echo, not a ghost, just emotion caught in time. The girl in the vision paused her ring and looked directly at them. And then, just for a moment, she smiled. Then the surface of the water stilled again. Ron sat back, shaken, but oddly calm. "All right, so, the room listens, and now it watches?" Hermione sat beside him. "Not watches, welcomes." Harry turned to inspect the walls. On one side, etched into the stone, was a long spiral of text, so fine and worn that it could only be seen when the candlelight hit it just right. He read aloud. To speak here is to remember aloud. The room hears only what your heart already knows. Beware, though, if your words are false, the room will fall silent. Hermione's eyes widened. That's the forgotten rule. Some rooms in Hogwarts, they test the truth of your magic, not the strength. Harry stepped closer to the pool. You mean if we lie in here, it shuts off? Worse, she said softly. It forgets us. The whisper of those words settled around them like fog. A quiet suspense hung in the air, not fear, but a reverence for the space they'd entered. It was no longer just a mystery, it was sacred. All right, Ron said, rubbing his hands together nervously. I've never lied to a room before, but I'll be honest, this is the oddest place I've ever been. Hermione smiled gently. It's not odd, it's kind. She placed her hand above the pool and said softly, I was afraid I'd never belong here, that being smart was the only thing people saw, but I wanted someone to just understand me, not for what I knew, but for what I felt. A soft shimmer passed through the room, then a low whisper, not a voice, but an emotion, wrapped around her words and sank into the pool. Ron followed, clearing his throat. I don't always know what I'm doing. I joke because I panic, but I care. I care more than I say. Another shimmer. Harry stepped forward last. He paused, his gaze fixed on the silver surface. I'm tired, he whispered, not from fighting, but from always feeling like I have to be all right so others can just be. The light around them deepened, warmer now, like sunlight beneath water. The room accepted their truths, and then the far wall shifted. A hidden shelf emerged, not of books, but of objects. Small, magical tokens from students long gone, a folded map, a dragon-shaped quill, a bottle of ink that shimmered like moonlight, and in the center, a softly glowing page, written in the same script as the magical book above. Harry picked it up. The words pulsed gently as he read. Every student who spoke here left a truth behind, one that no spell could erase. If you find this, know that your voice matters, and your silence holds meaning, too. There was no dramatic flash, no loud spell, just the peaceful hush of magic settling deeper into their bones. The Whispering Room would remember them, and perhaps one day it would call them again. But for now, it let them go. They rose and quietly climbed the spiral stair once more, back into the halls of Hogwarts, where the ordinary waited. But they had touched something that changed them, and in the quiet behind them, the room listened still. The stone steps felt different on the way up, less like an exit, more like a passage to something they were meant to carry with them. The three friends emerged from the Whispering Room in thoughtful silence, the hush of magic still clinging gently to their robes. Back in the outer library, daylight slanted across the floor, pooling in quiet golden puddles beneath the tall windows. A few students milled about in the distance, unaware of the magical door hidden in plain sight just behind a shelf of dusty spell theory. Hermione was the first to speak. We can't tell anyone about this. Ron frowned. Why not? I mean, it's not like we found a cursed cauldron or a dangerous monster, just an old room with feelings. Hermione turned to him. That's exactly why. It's not ours. It belongs to Hogwarts, to every student who's ever whispered a truth in there. And if too many people know about it, if they try to force it open, demand things from it, it could forget how to listen. Harry nodded quietly, or stop listening altogether. The truth of those words settled into all three of them like a decision already made. They moved through the rest of the library in calm exploration, not searching for more magic, but understanding what they had already found. In the quiet corners of the library, they now noticed small signs, echoes of that magic at work. Books that opened to just the right page, lamps that flickered softly when someone nearby felt anxious, a chair that always seemed to be warm, even on rainy days. I think, Hermione whispered as she brushed her fingers along a windowsill, the library is more alive than anyone gives it credit for. It remembers who's kind to it. Harry wandered toward a section they hadn't visited yet. A shelf of books on magical ethics, worn volumes filled with handwritten notes in the margins. One book pulsed faintly as he drew near. Its cover read, "The Choice of Silence, When Not to Cast the Spell." He looked at it for a long moment, then gently opened it. Inside were stories, not of great magical feats, but of times wizards had chosen not to use magic. A healer who let a wound close naturally to build trust with a muggle. A student who left a spell unfinished so another could find their own path. Quiet decisions, invisible strength. Ron peered over his shoulder. Not exactly flashy magic, is it? Harry smiled. No, but it's the kind that stays. Hermione joined them, holding a small, forgotten scroll she'd discovered as wedged between two encyclopedias. Its ribbon was frayed, but the seal was still intact. She unrolled it slowly. It was a list. Students who left something behind. Names stretched across the parchment, some familiar from portraits, others lost to time. At the bottom, 3 new lines shimmered into view. Hermione Granger, I want to be understood. Ron Weasley, I care more than I say. Harry Potter, I'm tired of pretending. I'm always fine. They stared at it in awe. It recorded us, Ron whispered, like we're part of it now. Hermione rolled the scroll back up with great care and tucked it into a hollow in the bookshelf as if it had never left. They didn't need applause. The room had listened. That was enough. Later that evening, back in the Gryffindor common room, the fire cracked softly. Outside, snow drifted in gentle flurries past the tower windows. The castle felt wrapped in its own kind of hush. Ron was lying on the couch, arms behind his head, staring into the flames. Hermione was seated in her favorite chair, a new book in her lap, but not yet opened. Harry stood by the window, watching the snow fall. After a long pause, he spoke. We should leave something behind, too. Ron sat up. You mean like a note? A charm? Hermione's brow furrowed. A spell? No, Harry said quietly. A choice. Something the room would remember. Something not for anyone else. Just for the magic that listened to us. Hermione closed her book. You're talking about giving something up. Harry nodded. A spell, a small one, just for a while. Ron blinked. Mate, we can't just stop using magic. Not forever, Harry replied. Just pick one spell, something simple, something you use without thinking, and stop, just to remind ourselves that we have a choice. Hermione looked down at her wand, thoughtful. I always use Lumos in the library corners. It's comforting. Ron scratched his head. I always use Accio for snacks from my trunk. I guess I could walk over and get them like a normal person. Harry smiled, and I use Alohomora almost every day. Doors, windows, anything slightly stuck. Maybe it's time to just knock. They made the vow softly, without drama. Just three friends choosing something quiet, something the magic could remember. Up in their dormitories that night, sleep came gently, and in the library far below, the whispering room shimmered once, acknowledging them. The spell that turned pages had asked nothing in return, but they gave something anyway. That was the magic Hogwarts had always hoped its students would learn. The corridor leading back to the whispering room felt different this time. Not just more familiar, but somehow expectant, as if the library itself had been waiting for them to return. It was evening now. The chandeliers above cast long golden reflections on the stone floor, and the last of the day's soft snow pressed gently against the tall windows. Hogwarts was quiet in that way it sometimes got, when everything living inside its walls seemed to pause and listen. Harry, Hermione, and Ron walked together, their footsteps slow and deliberate. They had made their choice, not out of curiosity, but out of something else, something deeper. Gratitude. They reached the shelf again, the same row of old spell books, now with one volume missing, the one that had once held the whispering doorway. Hermione reached forward, hand hovering in the air. Before she could speak, the door formed again. Gently, as though it had been watching, they stepped inside. The whispering room was as they had left it, and yet not quite. The pages floating in the air moved slower now, glowing with a warmer, softer light. The candles flickered as if breathing, and the great domed ceiling shimmered with a faint silver mist, like a memory slowly forming. They stepped into the center of the room, their eyes drawn to the three journals that had once written their truths. Now, the journals had floated together, forming a single shape, a quiet, pulsing orb of parchment and light. It hovered before them like a question not yet spoken. Then the room stirred, not with wind or movement, but with feeling. The silver mist above their heads began to shift, forming shapes, figures. A young boy in Hufflepuff robes, sitting on the floor with a book on his knees, tears in his eyes, he whispered into the air, "I just want someone to think I'm clever." A Slytherin girl pacing in circles, repeating softly, "I didn't mean to lie. I just didn't know how to be honest." Gryffindor, fifth year, staring at the ceiling, whispering, "Please don't let them see how scared I am." Hundreds of voices, hundreds of students, all of them had been here before. Hermione gasped. "These are the memories the room kept." "They're not just stories," Harry whispered. "They're feelings, the ones no one speaks out loud." Ron stepped closer, watching the shimmering mist swirl into more forms. He turned slowly to the others. You know what this means, don't you? The room didn't just listen to us, it listens to everyone. It remembers everyone. The orb of light pulsed once and descended slowly into the center of the room, settling onto a small stone pedestal that hadn't been there before. The pages that made it up began to spin outward again, forming a perfect circle in the air, like the petals of a magical flower. One page floated forward. Written in shimmering ink was a single message. It was never just a spell. Hermione read the words aloud, her voice catching in her throat. The page continued to glow, and slowly, more words began to appear, like truth uncoiling after years of rest. This room was created to hear what magic could not, a place where silence was sacred, where secrets were safe, where the heart could cast its own kind of spell. Tears welled in Hermione's eyes. This isn't just a spellbound room, she whispered. It's a living memory, an archive of the soul. Harry stepped forward and placed his hand on the pedestal. The orb glowed in response. I always thought Hogwarts protected us with spells, he said softly. Charms, wards, enchantments. But this is something else. Ron added, it protects us with listening. Another page floated forward, settling between them. This one had no writing at first, just a slowly forming scene, a vision of the castle many years ago. 4 figures stood in this same room, Godric, Helga, Rowena, and Salazar, their younger selves, their faces thoughtful. They each held a single quill, and as they dipped it into a glowing well of ink, the room shimmered into being around them. Their voices echoed softly. Rowena, we build walls to guard knowledge, but who will guard the lonely? Helga, let this place be a sanctuary, not just for thoughts, but for truth. Godric, a room that does not judge, only listens. Salazar quietly, even the feared must be allowed to whisper. The vision faded, and the 3 friends stood in silence. Then Hermione spoke, her voice trembling with wonder. The Whispering Room was created by all 4 founders, not as a test, not as a challenge, but as a gift. Harry nodded slowly. A room made of compassion, and Ron, still staring upward, said quietly, no wonder it waited so long to be found. You have to be ready, not just with your wand, but with your heart. The orb slowly reassembled itself, and the mist above began to dim, like the end of a dream. But before the light faded, a final image emerged, an overhead view of the entire room, glowing with soft golden threads. Each thread connecting one memory to another, one whisper to the next. It looked like a heart, a great, glowing heart of memory. The 3 of them stood beneath it, small and quiet, but somehow held, not by magic, but by care. They turned to leave the room together. No words were needed now. The pages began to settle, the candles grew still, and the shimmering doorway faded gently behind them, like a sigh that had been waiting to be released. And the castle, in its deep and thoughtful silence, remembered. As the door to the Whispering Room softly faded behind them, A hush seemed to settle over the corridor, not an emptiness, but a gentle silence, as if even the walls knew something special had just taken place. The flickering torches along the hallway cast steady, warm light now, no longer stretching shadows, but offering calm reassurance. It was well past midnight, and all of Hogwarts was asleep. The trio walked slowly, almost unwilling to break the magic of that moment. No one spoke for a while, not because there was nothing to say, but because words felt too small to hold what their hearts had quietly learned. Hermione finally broke the stillness with a soft murmur. "Do you think anyone else will ever find it?" Harry looked ahead, watching the soft glow of candlelight reflecting on the stone floor. "Maybe, if they need it badly enough. That room, it listens when no one else does." Ron gave a thoughtful nod, his voice low. "Feels like it knew we were coming, right from the start, like it waited for us." As they turned a corner, the familiar paintings lining the walls greeted them with their usual sleepy murmurs. One portrait, an elderly witch in blue robes, blinked slowly and smiled as they passed. "Late night, dears?" or "Early morning?" None of them replied. They simply smiled back, the warmth in their hearts shining through tired eyes. Soon they reached the common room entrance. The fat lady gave them a knowing look, but didn't ask for a password this time. She simply swung open with a soft hum, allowing them entry. The room inside was dim, the fire reduced to a bed of soft embers, casting golden ripples across the carpet. Hermione paused near the hearth and sat down slowly, her fingers brushing over the spine of a book she had left on the armrest earlier. She didn't open it, just held it, as if the pages inside might whisper too, in their own way. Ron sank into a chair, stretching his arms behind his head and sighing in that deep, contented way that only follows after something big has passed. Not a battle, not a spell, but something felt. Harry stood for a while, quietly watching the embers. Then, with a small smile, he moved toward the dormitory stairs. But before he climbed, he turned back. "You know," he said softly, "that spell, the one that turned the pages, I don't think it was meant to be used. Not really." Hermione looked up, puzzled. "Then what was it for?" Harry's gaze lingered on the flickering coals. "I think it was meant to remind that sometimes the most powerful magic is when someone listens, when someone sees you." That's what the room was, a reminder that even in a place as big and loud as Hogwarts, every quiet voice matters. The words settled gently in the air. Ron, eyes half closed, murmured, "Remind me never to make fun of magical books again." That brought the smallest laugh from Hermione, a warm, sleepy laugh that melted the weight from their shoulders. Outside the common room window, the sky had begun to shift. The dark blue of night faded softly into a pale gray. The castle was beginning to wake, and inside, 3 friends carried something precious back with them. Not an object, not even a memory they could describe, just peace. The kind that comes from knowing that magic doesn't always roar like fire or flash like lightning. Sometimes it turns pages, and sometimes it listens. As they each drifted off to bed, Hermione with her book clutched gently to her chest, Ron already softly snoring, and Harry gazing once more at the moonlit glass before finally closing his eyes, the castle exhaled in its own way, quiet, whole, and watching over all of them.